Hello, everyone, and welcome to another episode of the Essays in Espresso podcast. I am joined by my cohorts, Acer.
Hello.
How are you?
Hello, I'm good.
And Boken. How are you?
I'm making a lot of noise right now. I don't think you can hear it, but I almost tipped over my microphone.
Well,
what a thrilling beginning.
Post.
What a thrilling opening to a podcast, Boken.
Thank you.
Shut up, everyone, because now it's time.
Comedy.
It's time. It is Final Fantasy XIV versus World of Warcraft.
It's gonna be a long debate, this one. It's gonna go down in history.
It's gonna be a knockout, drag-out brawl between me and Boken. Me, the Final Fantasy XIV connoisseur, versus Boken, the World of Warcraft slop eater.
Yes.
The Final Fantasy virgin versus the World of Warcraft chat.
Oh, you wish.
I'm gonna be on the middle, and you two are gonna have to convince me which one is better.
That'll be easy.
Currently, World of Warcraft is winning because I think Final Fantasy is more weepy, but World of Warcraft is like Western weep, so maybe it's even.
But isn't that your thing?
What?
You're a fucking comics guy. You don't like Western weep?
Oh yeah, I am a Western weep, I guess.
This coming from the guy that would play fucking Hollow Knight while watching anime.
That is true, I did play Hollow Knight.
I don't see how that is in any way connected, but okay.
Because Acer is still a weeb.
No, I had to, because Fate Zero was a good, I don't call it, like, we need a term for it. You know how people are like, oh, it's not a movie, it's a film. I call movies flicks, and we need that for TV too. I would say Fate Zero is the television series equivalent of a flick. It's something you put on. I hadn't. It's something you put on when you're playing Hollow Knight.
No, it's actually not.
I would say the TV equivalent of flick is like a program.
Oh. That sounds so fucking sterile.
Yeah, it's very non-committal. It's just something you put on and don't care about.
We are now consuming the program.
It's my program. My program is on. Fucking old people, am I right?
Yeah, man.
Boomers.
We'll all be there someday.
All right, Acer, I'm looking at the doc.
Oh yeah.
What the hell is this? What? Three-way?
Yes.
Three-way what?
A three-way Yu-Gi-Oh battle.
No!
Yes. So you guys, I know
Are
how
you
much.
Serious?
I know how you guys love Yu-Gi-Oh. You live and breathe it. Especially you, Daniel, because you love anime. But especially you, Boken, because you love Kaiba. You love Yu-Gi.
I actually like Yu-Gi-Oh! Is the problem. Like, there has been a time where I've played some Yu-Gi-Oh! Online, and there's also been a time where I watched the anime.
See? You live and breathe Yu-Gi-Oh!
I like Little Karibo's abridged series.
That abridged series is so good. People say it's lost its luster. I disagree. I think it's just as strong as ever. It's just very different, and also you're not 12 anymore.
Yeah, I haven't seen it in a very, very, very long time, to be fair. But, like, I remember watching it as it was coming out and thinking, this is high art. This is... Shakespeare, get the fuck out of here.
But yeah, so I recently put out the call on Twitter that I will fight anybody on Yu-Gi-Oh! Pro and win.
Oh.
I am the best Yu-Gi-Oh! player.
Words.
I'm the best Yu-Gi-Oh! player in the world. So I was very shocked.
You are the best Yu-Gi-Oh! player in our little Twitter bubble, you mean?
In the world. My Twitter bio says so. And I was very surprised then when we had a three-way Yu-Gi-Oh! duel that I didn't win a single one. So it was really fun. We all just drew like random cards from like this assortment of like non-archetype locked cards. so that you can actually make something good with these decks. And we just had, I think we played for like 4 hours while we waited for Conjuring 3 to show up in the cinema.
Who the fuck is we?
I was playing with my friends.
Do you have friends?
Not after that Yu-Gi-Oh match. I rage quit so hard. No. Yeah, I have some friends.
Wait,
Boken,
so-
did you just tacitly admit that you are not his friend?
He's not my friend.
No-
he's
no
my
comment.
enemy.
That's so harsh. Oh,
Haven't we talked about my enemies list on this podcast?
I'm sure I've done enough to land on there. I don't remember what it was, but
King K, he's on there because he used a similar thumbnail to mine once. I think.
oh, by the way, our next guest is King K.
What? I thought we were doing games with literature.
Actually, yeah, he is legitimately going to be our next guest. That is true.
Okay. I think
No, but-
Vati
Hold-
is also one of my enemies.
okay.
Wait, what is it, Boken?
I'm really confused about this dumb Yu-Gi-Oh story because you say you're a good Yu-Gi-Oh player, and then you got two random friends who presumably don't play Yu-Gi-Oh, and
Oh,
beat
they
you?
are hard. They are hardcore Yu-Gi-Oh. One of
Well,
them
then
has
how
a
can you
Yu-Gi-Oh
be the best
tattoo.
one? Then you're
Because-
not even the best Yu-Gi-Oh player in your little fucking island.
Oh, Boken, you sweet summer child. I wasn't playing with my main deck. I would have floored them if I had my main deck. No, I'm pretty good. I'm not the best in the world. I'm pretty good, though. But yeah, it's really fun because it's all like... It was basically DM format, which is like how Yu-Gi-Oh was played 20 years ago. And yeah, it's just like draw like random assortment of cards. Good
It's
luck
before
making
all
a... Yeah, good luck making a functional deck out of this.
20 years ago, is that when we didn't have all these dumb extra rules? And it
Oh,
was
you
just
mean those?
like,
You mean those great extra rules that actually make the game playable? Yeah,
I don't know, probably.
yeah. People,
I remember
people are.
Black Hole being banned,
Yeah, that's a.
and then
that's
there was
a-
this. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. Black Hole. It's Black Hole. I don't think it's banned anymore because it's been power crept out of the game.
Great. And I remember there was some dumb repel trap or something that just destroyed every card on your enemy's
Mirror
field?
Force. Yes.
Mirror Force, yeah.
Yes.
That also seemed really, really stupid.
Yes. But it's
See,
not
that's-
banned
that's
now
my
because we
Yu-Gi-Oh
have so
knowledge.
much recovery. We all need to have a Yu-Gi-Oh tournament one of these days, guys. I think I'd win.
I mean, probably.
Being that
Lisa,
I'm the only one who knows the rules.
I hope you win.
For your own sake.
It would be so sad after all this talk.
Yeah.
This fucking bravado, and then we just like wipe the floor with you without even knowing what we're doing.
It'd be like if Boken and I were to play Street Fighter and I just randomly button mash and win.
See, sometimes that can happen.
That can happen?
It can happen. It's
But I think that's more likely to happen in either Tekken or Soul Calibur. Just based on my experience.
like as a normal player, you're so conditioned to sensible approaches to how the enemy is going to come in, and it's like, wait, why is he jumping again? He's jumping again. What the fuck is going on? And then, yeah, you need to really change your play style.
He's literally just grabbing the air multiple times. What's he doing?
But like the new Street Fighter V, it's fairly easy to just destroy mashing people.
Yeah.
So, getting away from fucking Yu-Gi-Oh, you've been very into the Conjuring and Insidious? What's up with that?
I've been doing a James Van-a-thon. He's a good movie maker. I hadn't watched Insidious 2, and I really liked the first one when that came out. And so I was like, you know what? I'll give this a shot. I shouldn't have, because it's not very good. It's just like mediocre, and it establishes the backstory for ghosts and ghouls that you didn't need to, because now it's just like, oh yeah, this scary old lady. It's just a crazy ghost from the first one. Nah, you see, it's actually, and it's like, why you dump this on me? It's almost retroactively making the previous movie worse. But I also watched The Conjuring 3. This was after my Yu-Gi-Oh!
This seems like something Boken would watch, not you.
The Conjuring.
What? Doesn't that have 1,000,000 jump scares?
Yeah. Boken would be too scared.
Yeah.
Oh, that's right.
When I think
I forgot
of Conjuring,
that Boken is a huge baby. I'm sorry.
When I think of Conjuring, I just think like people enter an abandoned house that's haunted, and then a bunch of random scary shit happens.
I just associate like bad movie, like horror movie schlock with Boken.
See, I would say the Conjuring movies, they are... The first one, I would say that's a genuinely good movie. It's really classy, and it's like just... It's so well structured, like you get the characters at the right time, and there's like... That's just a really well put together movie. Conjuring 2, I think it's not as good, but it's still like... The Conjuring movies are like always a step above those mediocre jump scare horror movies. These are made with some craft. The third one is the worst of the Conjuring movies, but it was still fine.
I mean, that's typically how it goes, right? Like, it can be a toss-up between, like, the first one and the sequel. Sometimes the sequel's better, sometimes the first one's better, but the third one is usually always the worst. Like, I can't think of a single movie trilogy where the third one was the best one. That's
the prequel trilogy. Revenge of the Sith is the best of the prequel trilogy.
Yeah.
I guess, but that's technically also the sixth movie.
Also, in terms of entertainment, Rise of Skywalker is by far the best one.
You're a crazy person. You're a crazy person with a podcast.
What? No, seriously though, I had way much more fun watching Rise of Skywalker.
I barely remember anything about Rise of the Skywalker.
Well,
that movie was a blur.
Structured as a breakneck pace.
I remember Poe Dameron was wearing his best Nathan Drake cosplay. But yeah,
hold on.
Hey.
There was something I wanted to say about this. Oh yeah, I feel like it's been a long time since the sequel has actually been better than the first one.
I'd say, actually, I think Thor Ragnarok, the third Thor movie, is the strongest Thor movie.
That doesn't count. That had so many movies in between. But I would say Guardians of the Galaxy 2 was better than 1.
You think so?
Interesting. I hear most people prefer the first one. I've only seen the first one. I haven't seen the sequel yet.
Are you, maybe, Bogan, are you perhaps blinded by Kurt Russell?
It's possible.
Kurt Russell will do that to you.
I didn't like the first one that much.
I really liked the first one.
It was
and
okay,
I don't like
but...
Marvel movies. Like, I really just find most Marvel movies to be painfully boring. But I liked Guardians of the Galaxy.
Wow, what a contrarian.
Because it didn't feel like a Marvel movie.
But the second one doesn't either. Yeah. The second one also has a fairly sensible story and like good character development.
Yeah, like I liked the first Galaxies because it didn't feel like a typical Marvel movie. It felt like a fun sci-fi adventure movie.
Yeah, it's also so self-contained. You can just watch that and have a good time.
Yeah, you don't feel like, who's fucking Captain, stick up his ass. I don't know. I don't care.
But nowadays it's just, I don't know, even if there is on the rare occasion that there is some original idea or cool concept, they just immediately pounce on that shit and turn out a bunch of garbage sequels. And they're never as good as the original.
Yeah.
I think...
See, for example, Iron Man.
I feel like outside of Marvel movies, though, there haven't been too many sequels.
DC movies? Like The Dark Knight and stuff?
Out of Cape shit.
That's not that recent, though. That's like 10 years ago since we got those.
But like, think about it. Like, there's not. I'm not saying they don't exist. Obviously, they do. But like, outside of like, comic book movies, there aren't a ton of sequels coming out.
No, it's all franchises with different entries into them.
Like, okay, they're coming out with A Quiet Place Part 2.
Yeah.
That's the only one I could think of. I'm sure people will be like, "Oh, you forgot about blah, 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 Part 2."
Well,
Yes, I'm sure there's plenty of examples.
What are the big franchises like Jurassic Park? Is that a sequel?
That's a franchise.
Kong and Godzilla, they're doing that kaiju-verse.
Yeah.
Yeah, those mediocre.
I have to
slap
assume
fests.
that Kong
Fast and
versus
the Furious?
Godzilla. Well, I don't know. That gets away with being part 9.
Yeah, oh my God. I never would have thought when I first saw Fast and the Furious in fucking middle school, like 15 years ago, that it would still be going now.
Speaking of Fast and the Furious, let's talk about James Wan again. So, The Conjuring 3, he's not directing that one. He's producing it, and I think he was involved in the story. Do you guys know what the story is for Conjuring 3? Well, wow,
No.
don't everybody answer at once, guys. Okay, so these are all based on real events, and I imagine they're not at all making anything up. Ed and Lorraine
inspired by real events.
It's all
Something
happened.
happened. Something happened once, and it inspired me to make up the story.
No, this really happened. It's all real. Ed and Lorraine Warren were demon hunters, and they got a lot of ghosts. And for Conjuring 3, this happened. I think this is the first time that an American court has had to make a ruling on the existence of the devil or something like that, because there's a guy who committed murder and swore that he had been possessed by a devil while he was doing it. And yeah, that's the movie. And I didn't love it, but I think it's an interesting sort of sequel because it's not just you're chasing another ghost or another demon. You're actually chasing like this satanic cultist. And it's kind of like, oh, this is a bit of a different type of sequel. And I think I'll like it more in a few years. Bogan, you could watch these movies.
Yeah, for some reason I doubt that, but okay. Let me check. Let me check my jump scare website
No!
to see what kind of rating it has.
No, you can trust me.
You can keep talking. I'm still talking.
But yeah, I love the Conjuring movies. Something I love about them, and I posted this on Twitter earlier today, is that they don't do like interpersonal drama shit with the characters. Ed and Lorraine Warren, they're just like, they love each other and they're there for each other. And there's never a moment where they're like, you screwed up and I don't trust you anymore. It's just like, no. They love each other and they're just going to solve the problem together.
That's refreshing.
Yeah. And Patrick Wilson, what a beautiful man. Vera Farmiga, not as beautiful as Patrick Wilson, but still very beautiful. And they're very good actors. And I like this kind of like, I don't know, ghost hunting paranormal couple horror franchise. It's really weird, but I really like it.
12 jump scares, you fuck.
No, you.
There's a jump scare rating 4 out of 5 stars.
No. Boken, come on. I also watched Lee Vanell's The Invisible Man.
Conjuring 2 has 5 stars. 22 jump scares?
No.
Jesus Christ.
It's mostly an old man yelling about his house. I don't
know why, but this randomly reminded me of this movie I saw like back in 2014 called The One I Love. It's about this married couple that are having marriage issues, and then they try to go on vacation, and they find these clones of themselves, and these cloned versions are like better versions of of each other, and they ended up falling in love with each other's clones. It's super weird.
That's ridiculous. But yeah, I also watched Lee Vanell's The Invisible
It was a decent
Man.
movie.
Lee Vanell and
Is that
James
the new
Wan.
one?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Lee Vanell and James Wan both got their start making the Saw movies. I think they only really were involved on the first one. Then they just had some tangential involvement. And this is a really good movie. You know, Bogan, how I'm always the guy who's like, stop making horror movies that always wind up being just, oh, it's an allegory for like some psychological trauma, blobbity bloobity. The Invisible Man is that, but what I loved about it was that it didn't shove that into the third act as like the big twist reveal. No, it's like from the get-go, that is the point, and that was so refreshing to me. And it's really well made. Like, again, you can't go wrong with these guys. They're really good at their craft at this point.
I have been interested in watching this because I know
Yes.
what it is. But again, like
There
the
is-
concept itself is jump scary.
Yeah, I think there is one jump scare.
Is it the one on the ladder?
Yeah, have you seen that one?
I have seen that clip, yeah.
Yeah, I think that's the worst of it. Otherwise, it's just like, you know somebody is there. It's just like the framing. It's more unnerving than anything else.
But that's the point, right? It's someone's there and you don't know when they'll strike, basically.
Yeah. Yeah. So I really
Well, maybe
recommend
there was
this
a
one.
website that would warn me.
If only you weren't such a bitch.
Man, I can't do anything about it. It's just really uncomfortable.
Face your fears.
Yeah, man.
Although I did, like, last week. Well, this
You're
week,
being
I
a-
guess.
You're being a real Jerry. From Rick and Morty.
Oh, okay. I was thinking Seinfeld, and I was confused.
I'm the Rick of the podcast.
No, but I actually watched some, like, it wasn't really a horror movie, but it had a couple jump scares, and because I didn't expect it to be a horror movie, the jump scares didn't bother me.
Huh.
And they were really dumb jump scares too. Like, Amy Adams walks down into the basement, and then suddenly, like, a paper bag moves right in front of her, and it made
Yeah.
like the weirdest sound. Like, it made like a woo sound, even
What
though
a-
no one was there.
I love Amy Adams. What did you say this movie was?
The movie's bad, but I also love Amy Adams. It's called Woman with a Window, I think.
That's a bad
So
name.
it's a very clearly a, what is it called, the Hitchcock movie? Rear Window? I think
Yeah.
it's Rear Window, yeah. It's a very obvious homage. But it's not a good movie.
Nah. All right.
It was
I
a
won't
mediocre
watch it then.
movie, and then it turned into a really dumb movie.
Yeah. Well.
Awesome.
I also this is the final thing I'm going to talk about. I also watched Nausicaa and the Valley of the Big Nerd. That is Hayao Miyazaki. I didn't like this movie, guys. I watched like the opening 30 minutes. It's so boring.
You didn't
And I
finish
know.
it?
No, I'm not finishing a
Jesus.
boring movie.
And how dare you talk about
Oh
this?
my god. Dude, shut up. Then get out. Don't even talk about it. If you didn't even finish the movie, shut up.
No, I still have I have so many thoughts.
No.
Yo, I'm so
Your thoughts
interested.
are irrelevant.
So how exactly are the bugs so big? That wasn't realistic at all. How can she fly? They didn't explain that to me. What was
What
the
are you,
giant?
CinemaSins?
What was the what was the giant airplane about? I don't know. They didn't tell me in the opening 20 minutes, so I don't know. I feel like people are really afraid of having their own tastes, and so everybody just pretends like, oh yeah, I like Studio Ghibli. their movies are so boring. Am I wrong?
What? No, you're totally wrong. Everything you just said was fucking bullshit.
I haven't seen this movie, and I don't care about Studio Ghibli. But I'm calling you out on watching a movie for 30 minutes and then thinking you can come on this fucking podcast and talk about it.
No, I have keen insight.
I grew up with Ghibli movies. My love for their movies is completely sincere and genuine. It doesn't come from this like, oh, everyone else likes it. No, I genuinely love these movies. They're great fucking movies.
Okay.
You fucking piece of shit.
Okay, well, that's Bogan, what do you think about them? That's 1 against 1.
I don't care.
Well,
I've watched Totoro. It was okay. I have
was
an
boring
interest
too.
Fuck you.
It is.
Now you lost me. I'm with Daniel.
You know which one of their movies I do like is what's the little girl, the girl on the broom?
Kiki.
Yeah, I like that one. It's just a comfy little movie. That's a good movie.
Yeah, I love that movie. It's great.
Spirited Away, I thought was fine too.
Spirited Away gets a lot of love, and it is a good movie, but I don't personally love it as much as everyone else seems to.
Yeah.
I prefer the other Ghibli movies by a wide margin, but I'm still like, yeah, it was still a good movie. It was enjoyable.
Wasn't there a movie where Michael Keaton voiced a pig? I think I
Porco
like that
Rosso,
one.
yeah.
I think I like that one. And
that one's great.
Wasn't there one where there were like a brother and a sister and they were in a coal mine or like a coal town? Am I imagining that?
I don't remember that one.
Anyway, I may.
You might. I don't know. You might be thinking of Laputa, but that wasn't like a brother and a sister.
Oh, there was just a boy and a girl?
Yeah.
Oh, it may be that one. I may have liked that one. I don't remember it.
Laputa's really good.
Look, some of their stuff is good. This one...
most of it is good.
This one, I think you can safely ignore. People...
No. Shut up.
But yeah, that's my recommendation. Also, a lot of people are just casually ignoring that a lot of Stanley Kubrick wasn't that good. He made some good movies, and it was always like really well made, but most of his movies are so boring.
I'm gonna have to call you out.
Excuse me?
Boring. Saying something is boring is one of the most intellectually vapid ways to describe something.
See, I'm gonna call you out. Calling somebody out on definitions of terms is No, it's like people love 2001: A Space Odyssey.
Yeah,
I did not.
It's a great fucking movie.
That is actually a boring movie, but I can still like appreciate what it does, and I can appreciate how much influence it had because it's so revolutionary.
I don't think it's boring. I think it's a really great. I think it's a great movie. I don't find it boring at all.
Blade Runner 2049 is also pretty boring.
I could see why someone would find it boring, but I don't think it's boring.
Yeah, that's the thing where, I mean, it's very slow. And either you're engaged by what's happening, and then it's not slow for you, or it is, and then it's hard
Plenty
to
of people say that Blade Runner is slow and boring.
It is slow and boring.
Blade Runner is really slow.
It's also really boring.
I don't think it's boring.
Do you remember that scene in Blade
Runner?
See,
exactly. It's slow, but I don't think it's boring.
Do you remember? See, you say that, but you're not watching it right now. I dare anybody to shut off this dumb podcast and watch Blade Runner. There's like a 10-minute scene where Deckard is just like zooming in on some photos of like the murder scene, and it's like a snake scale.
Shut up.
That is so long and boring.
That's like people calling out the pie eating scene in Ghost Story. And then I got to that scene and it was like heart-wrenching, even though it's just a person eating pie and then puking into the toilet.
Ew. That's gross.
Yeah, I think when people complain about that in Blade Runner, it's just like Shut up. Like, it's not a big deal.
Look,
Yeah, really,
look.
like that is
Like,
one scene. I didn't even notice. I didn't even understand that people had that problem when I watched that, even for the
when I
second
s-
time.
Yeah, when I saw the scene, I just thought like, oh, this is a pretty cool way at the time for them to interpret what this technology would be like. Like, that's it. Like, and I didn't think it was boring. I was just like, oh, they're just showing off the technology.
It's
It
so
made
weird.
sense for the world building.
Like that scene takes maybe 2-3 minutes, I want to say, and I just wonder, like, if everything around that is okay, then I wonder how people just sit there and can't even just wait for something to happen for 3 minutes.
Well, that's because people's attention spans are like 7 seconds. If something's not happening within 7 seconds, people are like, oh, go, they go monkey mode.
Look, I'm just saying, Nausicaa and the Valley of the Wind could have used a few more explosions. What have you guys been up to?
That movie, it does have explosions. You would know that if you actually finished it.
No, I saw the airplane crash, and that was a good explosion. But then the characters just started talking. I don't want to listen to you talk. I want to see explosions.
See, the problem was, Daniel, that it didn't start with the explosions like Spec Ops, for example, did.
Yes. I
So-
also like
I see.
Bioshock because it starts with fire.
Truly, Acer is the monkey brain of this podcast.
Blade Runner is my favorite movie. I think we had this talk once.
Yeah, well, Blade Runner starts literally with like an eye with fire.
Yeah.
There you go, monkey brain.
And it ends like do 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 do. It's really good. Boring, but really good.
Tears.
Wait,
in the
the
rain.
original Blade Runner starts with an eye?
Yeah.
Yeah, I believe it's Decker. I think it's his eye
Okay.
or someone's
Oh,
eye, and then
well-
there's like fire being reflected in it.
Oh, because Blade Runner 2 starts with
An eye.
what is her eye, her name, but her eye.
Yeah, I don't remember.
Yeah, I haven't seen it since I saw it in theaters.
Ridley
I
Scott.
don't remember that specific scene.
Ridley Scott really needs to start making good movies again. We should have him on the podcast
Would
and
be
ask him.
nice.
Hey, Sir Ridley
Yeah,
Scott.
some
what the
people
fuck is wrong
some
with
people
you?
lose their way. Some people lose their way. What can you say?
Yes. And like Hayao Miyazaki. Anyway,
I don't think he did.
isn't he always
I mean,
retiring?
Ponyo was kind of lame, to be fair. I was not a big fan of Ponyo.
Isn't he always
Not te-
retiring?
Yeah, he is. He's always like, I'm done. And then he's like, oh, I got one more in me, bitch.
He seems like the most miserable man. And I see
I
on Twitter
love-
people
yeah.
people are like, oh, he's like a tortured artist. I don't think he's a tortured artist. I just think he's a jerk. I think
I saw this one image I thought was pretty funny where it was Junji Ito's artwork and it's just like horrific. And then it showed Junji Ito himself. He's happy. He's smiling. And then it showed like Hayao Miyazaki's work, beautiful, lush, peaceful. And it showed him miserable, dejected, sad.
I love the Miyazaki memes of him. I don't know where that is from, but that footage where he's like wearing the glasses and smoking and just looks so depressed while he's trying to work. That is
yeah, I love the one.
funniest fucking shit, man.
I love the one
And
where
it-
he's looking at some random like slot of ground and he's like, "This would be a good place to be buried."
Anime was a mistake.
you can be a good creator without being a negative, cynical jerk.
Yeah, like Junji Ito.
Yeah.
That dude's fucking awesome. Like fucking Usanagi, like that shit's fucking amazing.
Yeah. I
No,
love
Usamaki. That's what it's called.
Uzumaki. That's very
Yeah, yeah.
insensitive of you, Daniel. How dare
I'm
you
sorry.
not
I
speak
don't.
Japanese?
I don't know Japanese. I'm sorry. I'm trying.
Did you ever read The Drifting Classroom? That's not by Ito.
No.
That's by Otome or somebody. I don't know his name.
No.
'Cause I'm also not Japanese. That's a really good horror manga. I recommend that one. The Drifting Classroom.
That's a good title. I'll tell you that much.
Yeah. Yes. It's old.
All right.
and it has like old manga visuals, but it's still really good.
Okay. Do you want to talk about Ratchet, or you want to move on?
I already talked about Ratchet Nexus. Basically, I replayed it, and I was like, I like a lot of this, a lot more than I thought, but it's still like, So yeah, that's my Ratchet
I always
Nexus.
thought Nexus was just like, it's a solid little game. It's not anything like amazing, but
See, I think
it came out at a reduced price. I remember that. It came out for
Yeah.
like $30 or something like that.
It's
So
also-
even they knew.
it's also like it's like 4 hours long or whatever.
Yeah, super short.
But
I remember I platinumed it, and I was just like, okay, I'm never going to play this ever again.
Nexus is the one where I think I realized, oh, they should have just spun this into its own thing. Because there's everything I love about that game, like gliding around the air and looking for monsters, or being in that just sewer on that city planet, and it's just dark and you're just like in this really ambient mechanical place, or when I'm walking through the orphanage and I have like a flashlight on my shoulder and I'm picking up audio logs, like, whoa, that's really interesting. But all the shit I hate is the Ratchet and Clank continuity shit. So yeah.
Yeah, the continuity makes no sense.
Well, it's not that it doesn't make sense, but it's bad. It's like it's kid writing but like a kid
For
would not
babies.
Yeah, it's like the original Ratchet games had like pretty good writing. A kid would enjoy those. No kid would enjoy the writing in Ratchet Nexus. It's just like, it's like, oh, what do kids like? They like meme humor and like characters who are stupid. So let's just do dumb things. Anyways, that's me for this episode. You two have your rant now.
No, not yet. not quite. That'll be the second half.
Oh.
So, Pokin, tell us about stuff that you've been doing. How is Cruella?
Do you want to start with that?
Yes, I do. I'm
Jesus
very
Christ.
curious. I'm very curious about Cruella. Intrigued, even.
I this fucking movie, man. Like this is legitimately giving me existential nightmares, because I watched this. The movie is completely worthless, and then I looked up the Rotten Tomato scores, and this fucking thing, I pulled it up right now. 47% on the critics meter, on the tomato meter, I guess, which is the
Yes.
critics, right? That's the critics.
Bought
And then-
and paid for critics.
79% audience score
Oh.
for this fucking garbage. And I just don't understand. Like, this made me think a lot about mainstream movies in general, and apparently, like, what audiences want nowadays. And it's super depressing. Like, this movie, I don't understand what people like about it. And I assume it's just that it's a lot of spectacle and a lot of references to the original 101 Dalmatians, I guess.
I doubt it's the latter. Who has fond memories of the fucking Dalmatian movies?
Well, but then if no one had that, why even make this movie? If no one cared about Cruella de Vil?
I think people like Cruella de
No
Vil.
idea.
Do you remember Glenn Close played her in that movie with Johan Grufford?
Yeah.
Yeah. I think people like that character of Cruella de Vil.
Yeah, people know this character, and then they say, oh, we're going to give you an origin story of this very eccentric villain. Guess what? There's no origin story of this very eccentric villain. This movie's bullshit, man. It's fucking... Like, the Dalmatians are completely incidental to this entire story. And maybe you guys have seen... I'm going to spoil this shit, by the way, because...
No!
Go for it. Go ahead.
I don't know if you guys have seen that scene where the Dalmatians kill Cruella's mother.
I heard about it.
Yeah. And it's like, okay, that's how they're going with this villain story, because they have to explain somehow why she ends up hating Dalmatians, right? And why she wants to skin them. I guess that is the point of it all.
But can I just quickly ask you a question though? Does she hate Dalmatians? I think she just wanted like an eccentric outfit. I don't think she had it specifically out for Dalmatians out of every animal.
I'm not sure, but she's clearly very cruel towards animals, and she doesn't care. And she like
Cruella. I get it now.
Doesn't she get really obsessive about getting these pelts?
Yeah, but isn't that just because you can't have them? I don't think it's because it's Dalmatians.
I don't know.
You're not a real Cruella fan.
No, I'm not.
All those Cruella fans out there are raging.
But that's what people know about her, right? I'm not sure if she hates Dalmatians or if she just, because she can't have them, she ends up like really angry about them.
Dude, I have not seen the movie since I was literally a fucking baby.
Yeah.
I do not remember dick about the original Dalmatians movie.
But the point is that, I mean, I understand why they then make a scene where Dalmatians kill her mother in order to give her some motivation to end up hating the dogs or whatever. But the fact of the matter is that not only did the Dalmatians not kill her mother, as it then turns out, but it was like her rival who had like a high pitched what do you call it?
Voice?
No, not
oh,
the
like
voice.
a whistle.
A whistle, that's it. A high pitched whistle, and she basically sent the Dalmatians towards the mother. And she was actually killing her. But also she ends up with the Dalmatians with pets, as her pets at the end of the movie. And they're like basically buddy-buddy.
Oh.
So are we gonna get a new origin story where it's then explained why the fuck she's so obsessed with Dalmatians?
Is it in the same universe, or is it just like, hey, we like this character, let's remix something with her?
I assume it's a new universe.
Is Emma Stone good in it? She's a good actress.
They're so hammy. Like, I don't know.
How else do you do that character, though?
Well, you fucking don't. But I guess that is one thing that people latched onto. Like, it's her performance and the Baroness, her rival.
Who is the Baroness?
She's the fashion queen with a fashion empire, and she takes on Cruella or Estella in that case.
I mean the actress.
Oh, I do not. What was her name?
Jennifer Aniston.
Nah, it was some old lady.
Oh, Famke Jensen.
Hold on.
She's like 40.
Emma Thompson.
Oh, Nanny McPhee.
No idea. Yeah, Nanny McPhee. Sense and Sensibility. What the fuck? She was in that?
Yeah, she's like a highly regarded actress, Bogan, you slop.
She was in Harry Potter. I don't know who she played.
Yeah. She's the woman who had the... she was reading the fortunes in the cups, I think.
Really?
I think so.
Oh my god.
I think she quit making those movies, quit Harry Potter to do...
Yeah. Wow.
Yeah, I think she quit doing Harry Potter to do the Nanny McPhee movies.
Huh. Well, that's not a major role. That's very unimportant teacher.
Yeah.
But anyway, what fucking pissed me off about Cruella is that it's just spectacle. It's Cruella basically trolling the Baroness while working for her as Estella. And it's just the dumbest script you can come up with. Like, nothing makes any fucking sense. And I can only assume that people who watch that movie are like entertained by all the dumb set pieces and the stupid overblown ideas of what's happening. But I'm sitting there and I'm going like, how can Cruella afford to do this? Like, where's she getting this stage? Where's she getting all these outfits? Because like she has some help, but they have no money. They don't have any resources to do any of this, to wage this fucking private war on this fashion queen. it's so dumb. And I feel like most mainstream movies now just have shitty, terrible scripts, and no one cares anymore. It's like as long as you have some known actors who deliver a good performance, whatever that means, and then a bunch of recognizable characters and things where people go, "Oh, I know this," then it doesn't seem to matter anymore how good the actual movie is, how much sense it makes.
Do you know that the original Exorcist, I think that movie came out in like 79, that made like $400 million on like a shoestring budget? That's a pretty good movie.
Well, that happens. Like and then what happened to all the sequels, right?
Yeah, well, the
Like,
third one is apparently
The third
pretty
one
good.
is supposed to be great, yeah. I'm actually interested in watching that. But in general, The Exorcist, I mean, spawned a bunch of stupid ripoffs.
That's okay.
Apparently it's one of those great ideas, great execution, and then spawned a bunch of bullshit.
No, I feel like it
know.
also. I feel like you can also argue that it did a lot for horror movies.
Yeah, probably.
Yeah.
But
Anyways, I feel
Is-
like
yeah. Have mainstream movies always been this shitty? Or
Yeah,
have they gotten worse?
they've
I
always
haven't really been
bad.
paying attention to a lot of like mainstream movies because most of them don't interest me. So I don't know, maybe.
Have you
But
watched?
it's also the Marvel movies, for example. All of them end up with, well, I like these characters and I think they're good actors. But then you get to the actual story and the script, and it's just nonsense. Like, it's just some villain of the week, and then some magical MacGuffin, and then random bullshit happens, and then they fight at the end. It's always
Let's
the
get
same shit.
The Infinity Gauntlet.
Hey, that's a good MacGuffin.
It's a good one.
I think so.
It's one of the good
No.
ones.
No, but I feel like who fucking cares, man? Like, let people enjoy them. If they just want to go to the cinema and have some popcorn, I'd say let them.
See, I care because it's
not like
this-
this movie being bad took away from you being able to watch some good movie.
No, but this movie being created takes up a lot of finances and creative energy that could be spent elsewhere on making something good. And the fact that people watch this shit and pay so much money for it is just depressing, because that means there are more movies like this that will be made. I mean, Cruella, the sequel, has already been confirmed.
Yeah, but number one, I don't think the resources that went into this movie would have gone into a better movie if not for this. And I also don't think, the people liked it, like you said. I think they're entitled to have their sequel to their movie that they liked.
Yeah, I agree with that.
What the fuck? That's not an argument. Yeah, people can do whatever the fuck they want. That's not what I'm arguing. I'm saying it's a depressing trend, and it leads to a lot of big movies coming out that are shitty. And that doesn't mean
they're shitty.
they're
shitty
also,
to your sensibilities.
Yeah, of course. I mean, what am I doing here? Playing Arbiter?
I feel like it's very it's the same as when people are criticizing the Transformers movies for like not having a lot of depth. Those movies aren't for people who want depth. Like Citizen Kane, like it's the same when people are complaining that Citizen Kane doesn't have explosions. That movie is not for people who want to watch explosions. Like Cruella is not a movie for you, I don't think.
Yeah, I think that's a good point. Like, yeah, it's not made for you. So I think complaining that it shouldn't even exist, I think it's going too far. Like,
well, I mean, I think we can all agree that Nausicaa and the Valley of the Wind shouldn't exist.
I don't know. I feel like you're kind of mischaracterizing my argument, which is
I don't know what your argument is.
My argument is
you're basically saying it's depressing that money and time and effort went into this movie that you didn't like, and it could have gone into a movie that you did like. That's basically what you're saying.
Pretty much, yeah. And I feel like that's a fair argument to make because it just limits what kind of movies I can enjoy. And like a lot of the movies that come out that have actual money behind it are just then these terrible scripts because no one cares about that shit anymore.
I feel like the same argument works the other way, though. Like
I feel like you're being...
if it had gone to a good movie and you'd enjoyed it, but the audience hadn't, couldn't they make the same argument that this could have gone to make a Cruella movie?
I feel like you can make movies like this and still pay a lot more attention to making things make sense and have sensible characters. I feel like the people who only watch for the spectacle can still get the spectacle. But that doesn't mean the movie needs to be nonsense, where reality is just thrown out the window.
I have to say that I think you're being kind of reductive when you're saying that, like, oh, people just don't care. Like, you don't know what these people were thinking and feeling when they were making these things. Like, you don't know if they actually cared or not.
No, but that's
like, it's
true,
not
but
really fair of you to assume.
You can follow the money, and you can follow where movies have been going for a while now, right?
I don't think they've been going there for a while. I think they've always been this. I think it's a very ridiculous lie.
That's my question, though.
Yeah, but see, I think people have this ridiculous idea in their head that movies used to be good and now they're shit. Like, I implore anybody to try go back to the 40s or to the 60s. Yeah, you have great stuff. You have Butch Cassidy and the Sundance Kid. But most of it is absolute shit. Like, most of it is such putrid garbage, and you just forget about it.
See, that's the thing, right? Like, people only remember the classics because the classics stood the test of time. It's not because movies used to be better and now they suck. It's that most movies suck, and the ones that are good remain in the public consciousness, and that's the ones that get remembered. So when you think back, like, oh man, we had these fucking classics like whatever, Indiana Jones or Back to the Future or whatever. The 80s were such a great decade for movies, and then it's like everything else sucks compared to that. And it's like, well, you're also ignoring, a lot of the shit that came out that nobody remembers for good reason.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And it's going to be the same 10, 20 years from now. They're going to be like, oh man, movies suck now. Remember all the classics from the early 2000s or whatever? Like, it's going to be the same shit over and over again.
Remember the MCU? Tarantino, when he was on Rogan recently, he made the claim that the 80s was the worst era for movies.
Wow, bold claim.
Yeah.
I feel like the way we look back at Back to the Future is a good one. Blade Runner, those kinds of movies, is not the same way people in 20 years from now can look back at fucking Infinity War or something. But maybe that's just me making a fallacy.
Yeah, I think they'll look back at The Lighthouse with Robert Pattinson or like The Witch. They'll look back at the good stuff from this era.
No, The Lighthouse and The Witch don't have nearly as much recognition as Back to the Future has.
Oh, you mean in terms of like big cinema release, mass appeal?
The movies that have an actual budget.
Back to the Future has also had like decades worth of recognition to build up.
Yeah, but that started out successful.
I know Blade Runner wasn't successful. I'm thinking of other movies, maybe some Carpenter movies, for example.
Well, The Thing, John Carpenter's The Thing, when it initially came out, was not successful. It became a classic over time when people went back to it and reevaluated it and realized, oh no, wait, The Thing is actually fucking awesome.
Or like Ghostbusters.
Yeah, Ghostbusters was successful at launch. I feel like... Well, first of all, one big difference, and this is maybe where I agree with you, Bogan, and this is like, you can say the same for the music industry. The more accountants, the more bureaucrats you have involved in the creative process, that is a tax on creativity. The more people you have to get approval from, the worse the stuff is going to be. And I think that's just how it is. The larger something is, the less room for individual expression there is. So, when the
industry... Look at Falling in Infinity by Dream Theater. That was that album had the absolute most interference by the record label, and it shows. It's like one of their worst albums, and the band themselves are like, yeah, we don't, that album kind of sucks, and that's why they never play any songs from it in any of the shows.
Yeah, but like when you're talking about Back to the Future or like Indiana Jones, like movies from that era, that was like the birth of the blockbuster, and there was a real emphasis on like the director name, like a Spielberg or a George Lucas. Whereas now it's more the brand, and so the corporation that owns the brand has way more creative powers. Like you can make a Captain America movie that's okay, and it'll still make big bucks because people enjoy the character. Same with video games, like and same with music. The more it's creator driven, the better it is. But I think when things become like really big, that's a great time to kind of distance yourself from that sort of AAA blockbuster scene and get into the indie stuff, because the indie stuff thrives when the blockbusters are doing poorly.
Yeah, sure, but that's my problem with the indie sphere, right? I understand that's where the creative energy is and where the innovation takes place, but those games have different problems. For example, that they have no budget and that they often end too soon. And I mean, I'm not massively into great graphical fidelity, but it's nice to have it. It's nice to have like a really open, realized world, because the creators have the time and money to actually create that.
Yeah. But I think it's kind of just like, I think these things go in cycles. Like, I think you get massive, like you get somebody who makes something great, and then you have copycats, and then you have studios who just try to mimic it, and eventually it sort of stagnates until somebody from the indie scene or something changes. You get a new way to distribute things. I mean, look at Netflix. They came in and all of a sudden television became really, really good because they could afford to... They could not afford to make bad stuff, so they had to get creative people involved, and you got really good shows from them. Like compared to the times, and we had like a golden age of television for the last decade or so, and like it just things stagnate and then they become good again at some point. So movies probably will get good again.
See, the problem is I don't see the financial incentive to actually make things good.
Well, look at it from another perspective. It has never been cheaper to make a really well-produced movie. And the idea that you need to go to Hollywood and get everybody's approval to make like this big movie and that you can distribute this massive thing through their channels, that idea, I don't think is going to be around 20 years from now. I think 20 years from now, you know, there's going to be alternatives to wide distribution in cinema to make back $100 million budget. Whether it's by auctioning your movie to streaming services or whatever. And also special effects and stuff, that's getting cheaper by the day.
I hope so.
Yeah.
The games that I grew up on actually had a budget. Like the games that I hold in really high regard. I mean,
yeah,
it's like a Warcraft 3. That's not an indie project. That's a really innovative and really well designed high budget game from a big studio, right?
Yeah.
And I feel like once you don't get those anymore, you have a serious problem. Even though there are still great movies to watch and great games to play. But when all the big studios just make the same drivel for 10 years, like...
Wow, are you calling out Sony?
I'm calling out Sony. But that's my point, is I'm not saying every movie needs to be made for me and that there aren't good movies to watch right now. I'm just saying it's I like high budget movies, and that's why I want them to be better. And I feel like just saying no, this is shit, I'm gonna just turn my back on them isn't the right way.
No, I think things will have to change because eventually like the mainstream is always like 20 years behind the indie scene. So like today the mainstream is all about comic book movies, which was what like the niche markets were talking about the potential of superhero movies. They were talking about that 20 years ago, when like Spider-Man came out and stuff.
Yeah.
Anyways.
So talking about good movies, I watched Speed. And
What is this?
That's a Keanu Reeves movie.
Speed?
It's good.
You don't know Speed?
Yeah, I've never seen it.
But you know it.
I'm sorry. No.
Really?
I find
Okay.
it amazing, Bogan, that your one Cruella topic was longer than all of my topics combined.
Yeah, that went on for a while.
That happens every time. Also, don't call it my topic because I actually involved you in the discussion.
Well, you guys never jump in when I'm talking about stuff, except to tell me that Hayao Miyazaki movies are good.
That's maybe you should come up with some interesting talking points.
Hey, maybe.
Speed. Come on, Daniel. You know Speed. That's the movie where the bus needs to go 50 miles per hour.
Okay, yeah, I know what we were talking about. Yeah.
Homer said it was called The Bus That Couldn't Slow Down in that episode.
In what episode?
The one, I don't remember. Homer and the boys had to get out of work early, and he just put a looped footage over the camera that was staring at them.
Yeah.
And Homer said, I got this idea from a movie, and he just described Speed, and then he said, I think it was called The Bus That Couldn't Slow Down. And the footage that he had looped was from like the 70s, where he had hair and they had like sideburns and they were doing disco dances at work. I think it's in season 8. I don't remember which episode it was.
That sounds like a good joke.
That is a good joke.
But yeah, that feels like one of those movies that we nowadays don't get anymore. God, I don't want to sound old, but it's just this is I don't know if this had any source material or whatever. But
do you want to know? Do you know who wrote it?
No.
If you go on the Wikipedia page, it'll give you the name of some writer. That's not the man who wrote the final script, though.
Okay.
That's the guy who wrote the original script, and they brought in a script doctor to clean some things up, and he basically rewrote the whole thing, and that man's name was Joss Whedon.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
What?
Okay.
And he has I think he has the only copy of the Speed poster with his name as credited.
So he was like a ghostwriter?
Basically, like he was brought in to clean some stuff up, and he basically rewrote the whole thing.
Huh.
But according to him.
But yeah, I mean, the script isn't the greatest. Well, with action movies, it's difficult for me to judge how much is in the script and how much is the execution, right?
I think also just like that is a really strong concept if you deliver on it. Yeah, so I think it is a good script because this is such an easy premise to just be a mediocre movie.
Yeah, it's an easy premise to make a gimmicky movie out of.
Yeah.
And that's what I liked about this though, is that it's so low scale, but very high concept. And they really play out the concept to its logical end. And they have like all the good scenes that you would expect, or that you are, oh yeah, this could happen, and then it happens. Like they need to, for dumb reasons, kinda, but they need to make a jump that is not huge, but for a fucking bus, that's a pretty impressive jump, and it's very realistic and cool.
Yeah, I also like how they constantly shake up what the imminent threat is. So you have like the looming threat of you can't slow the bus down, but you have to think, okay, we have to get this bus somewhere where it can drive safely. And then you have that scene where he has to, like, to save himself, he accidentally destroys, he puts a hole in the gas tank. And it's like this, things are constantly changing and they're having to adapt to new problems.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Definitely. It's a lot of, you understand where the solution lies, and even if they get to it, there's some element that gets out of whack. And then they need to deal with that. Yeah. It is greatly structured. It's a really it has a really great structure as an action movie, and just it feels so realistic because it's so small.
Are you saying Joss Whedon deserves to become back?
Is he cancelled?
I think it was cancelled.
Okay. Isn't that the guy who made Buffy?
Yeah.
Yep.
Isn't that
And
the
the
guy
Avengers.
and the Justice League?
Yeah.
He did Justice League. He did Avengers. And he also cheated on his wife, apparently, and people got super fucking pissed about that.
Okay.
Like, that's the worst thing a Hollywood executive or somebody has ever done. Cheat on their wives. No, but I would not put Justice League on him. I think that's very much just, hey.
Well, it was originally a Zack Snyder film, and then he came in to Marvelify it.
Yeah, but it's like, I don't think he came in to make the movie that he wound up making. It seems to me like, because the movie was like 90 minutes at the cinema or something, so I'm wondering, was he promised to remake the movie, and he thought, oh, it's going to be a 2.5-hour movie, and I'll have to do like an hour and a half of reshoots, and then they go, by the way, it's going to be 90 minutes. You get to do 30 minutes of reshoots. Like, I don't think that Justice League movie being shit is a Joss Whedon problem. I think that's an impossible ask to fix that.
Yeah, I mean, it would be unfair to place the blame solely on him, because he basically was just reshaping someone else's movie entirely. So,
yeah,
like, it was bound to be a mess.
Like, that movie was so directionless that they couldn't shave Henry Cavill's mustache, which is like the big internet meme. Look, you just put up a fucking razor blade and you shave it. And if Paramount says anything, you tell them to go fuck themselves. Like this, this is what happens when you don't have a creative vision. Like, you don't have somebody with a vision there to say, no, we're not CGIing over the mustache. We're shaving the mustache. And they're just going to have to deal with that. It's ridiculous.
Yeah, it's kind of weird that Cavill got away with that.
Yeah.
I wonder how those discussions went.
That wasn't a Cavill problem. Cavill was legally obligated. He could, like, Paramount wouldn't let them shave it.
Studio versus studio problem.
Yeah. And that's the time where you want, like, a Scorsese or a Spielberg or, like, some creative director to walk up to Henry Cavill and shave his mustache. And just send it to Paramount in, like, a clear bag and make them escalate. Like, actually make this a bigger problem, because it's just gonna give us more clout. And we kind of need it after Batman v Superman.
That's so funny, honestly. Like, he's legally obligated to wear a mustache.
Yeah, like, and it's also like,
it's just there's a mustache clause somewhere in the contract.
Do you think Paramount would seriously have done anything? Like, what do you get? Like, okay, wow, he broke his contract. Who fucking cares? Like, they were just doing this to troll them, I think.
Yeah, I think we're getting off of the Speed topic.
I have unfortunately not watched Speed 2 because there's no English version available where I live. And go fuck yourself, whoever holds the fucking licensing deals for movies in this country.
Okay, then. What about Castlevania, then?
Castlevania Season 4, the last season, is out. And it was really good. I really recommend that series.
All right, I'm glad to hear that. I've watched up to Season 2. And...
So you watched Season 1?
Yeah, obviously. I saw Season 1, I saw Season 2.
Oh, so you watched... Okay. I thought up to means I'm at the start of.
No, I finished Season 1 and Season 2. I didn't watch Season 3 yet because it kind of stealth dropped and I kind of just missed it. And then Season 4 came out. I was like, wait, what?
Yeah.
Like, I remember hearing about Season 3, but I didn't know when it came out. and I think I saw like one episode of it or something. I don't know. The memories are a bit blurry for me on that end, but yeah. I've been hearing nothing but great things about season 4. People seem to think that season 4 is the best season.
I'm not sure. Difficult to say, honestly. The weird thing about season 1 to 3 is that it feels very disjointed. Like a lot of little stories and a lot of characters that have their own little problems, and a lot of the characters don't even really interact with one another or ever get to see each other. And so it feels very episodic in a way. And the good thing about season 4 is that they actually managed to bring all these characters together and like combine all these plot threads into a sensible ending. And I was like, I did not believe that they could even do it. I didn't even think they would attempt to do it. And I was really surprised how tightly written that was towards the end. So that was a pleasant surprise. And then in general, just the action scenes are, in my opinion, among the best of the animated action scenes. Like, I would put this up there with Avatar almost. In terms of just fight choreography and just the fluidity of the animation and the creativity that characters use their powers with.
You're talking about James Cameron's Avatar?
Yes.
Wasn't it the same animation studio, or am I totally off?
I don't think so, but I don't know.
No, wait. No, wait.
I thought Avatar is Nickelodeon.
I think, well, Avatar used like actual anime studios to help them animate.
Okay. I don't know.
Yeah, I'm thinking.
No idea.
Yeah, but I do know that the team behind Castlevania, they animated other like Cartoon Network shows.
Yeah.
I'm pretty sure.
I've seen some of them. There are more of them on Netflix, I think. But yeah, great series. Also, very interesting what they do with the lore, surprisingly. Like, Castlevania has a lot of bullshit lore in the games.
Oh, yeah.
Because it just started out with random horror references, right?
No, yeah, it was. Castlevania has absolutely, positively never been about the story in any of the fucking games. It's literally just an excuse for gameplay.
Yeah.
Castlevania fans are gonna come out of the woodworks.
Let them. I don't care. It's the truth.
And what they get out of the lore, the way they write characters and with sensible motivations, and they also like develop this world with all these rules and shit, is pretty wild when you consider what the source material is. That is actually super cool. Like, at the end of season 4, I don't know if I want to spoil this, but...
No, don't spoil anything.
Okay. Then just watch it. There's a really cool reveal and then a lore explanation for something that everyone knows about Castlevania.
Okay. That's cool. All right, I'm looking forward to that. All right. Is there anything else we want to talk about, or...
Well, how about that World of Warcraft?
Well, we'll leave that. We'll leave that for later.
Will we?
I think we've.
Are we actually going through with this? Like, we have people's views by now, right?
Yes.
No,
we're doing it.
I think we should leave it for the second half.
Jesus. Okay.
Yeah, it's gonna be big, boy.
I also think we should skip Daniel's segment because we're already more than an hour in.
I'll go through it now. Shut up. I'll go through it quickly. I don't have much to say, to be fair.
Okay.
Because most of these are books, so I'm just gonna go through them quickly. So there's a book by Jason Schreier called Press Reset. Really good. It talks a lot about how development studios deal with publishers, basically. So if that's something that you find interesting about the industry and you want to learn more about that, this book is all about that. And it shows how studios are, how they get started and how they close, and it's pretty sad because you read these stories about like Dead Space and when Warren Spector worked on Epic Mickey and a bunch of other games and studios, and these people like work their asses off to like make the best games that they can, but the they just get shut down because some fucking bullshit from the publisher. Like it's very illuminating. Strongly recommend it to anyone that's like really interested in learning about the video game industry.
Remember when they shut down the Dead Space studio and then they announced a remake?
I don't
Did
remember
they announce the remake?
Well, I don't remember about a remake.
That was just recently news that there's going to be some.
No, there were. Wasn't that just a rumor?
I think it was a rumor. Yeah.
Yeah,
it
it's a rumor,
sounded
yeah.
like a pretty much confirmed rumor.
I
Do you
don't
guys
know about
remember?
I think it
Do you
was
guys remember-
basically confirmed.
Do you guys remember when EA renamed all their studios to be derivatives of BioWare, and then they just unnamed them? I saw a tweet talking about that the other day. I thought that was pretty funny.
All right.
I do not.
Moving on. I read some books about Metallica. So
Right?
Metallica's a band I've never really cared about, to be honest. Like,
Metallica fans are gonna come out of the woodwork.
I'm sure they are. Not saying that they're a bad band, but I just never really got into their music. But I saw that I had some extra credits on Audible, and I was just like, oh, actually, no, wait, these books were free. I just remember it's part of my subscription. So I was just like, oh, whatever, I'll check out these Metallica books. But I accidentally read them out of order. So like, there's one Metallica book, because in my defense, they didn't make it very clear. There's one Metallica book that starts at the beginning of their career and ends up right before they made Saint Anger. And then the other book starts with them making like Saint Anger and just before they released their last album, which was Hardwired to Self-Destruct. So that's the one I listened to first. And I gotta tell you, going to these books out of order painted a very bizarre picture of the band in my head, because I go through this book of the latter half of their career, and I'm like, wow, these guys are a bunch of fucking clowns. Like, because Saint Anger is such a fucking piece of shit. It actually inspired me to want to see the documentary called Some Kind of Monster, which is about the making of that album. And that is an interesting documentary to go through, because it's just like the band just falling apart. Like they're so pissy with one another and like acting like just petty children over like dumb shit. Like James Hetfield is such a controlling. He's the lead singer. For those that don't know, he's such a petulant child and so controlling. He didn't want anyone to even listen to any of the material that they created when he left the studio. Like once he left, the producer and Bob Rock and Lars Ulrich, like if they wanted to listen to something, he's like, no, you can't. I have to be there for it. Like, he's such a controlling little shit. So listening through that and seeing how the band had kind of fallen apart and then built themselves back up was kind of interesting. But then I read the other book, and then I got to see how they started and how they built up their career. And then I was like, oh, wait a minute. These guys are actually legit. Or at least they used to be. Like, because, when you look at the latter half of their career, where it's not very glamorous, they're kind of washed up. It kind of paints a picture that these guys are just, are kind of doofuses. But then when you see like the first half of their career, and it's like, oh no, wait, these guys are actually like really creative and really talented, right? Like, they actually cared a lot about the substance of their music. Whether you like the band or not, whatever, that's fair. But like, they actually had a lot of integrity, and they actually deeply cared about making the best music that they possibly could. And that's when I actually learned to like respect them a lot as artists. And I was like, oh, okay, this band's actually pretty legit. So
I've heard that Hardwire to Self-Destruct was supposed to be one of their better albums. Like
yeah,
that was a great sort of turn back to form for them.
yeah, it was. Like I wouldn't say it's like a fantastic 10 out of 10 album, but it's a good solid album for sure. Like it's got some really good tracks on it. Supposedly they're working on a new one as well.
Yeah.
But yeah, so the books were called Life, Death, School, Taxes, and Metallica, or something like that. It was like a weird title. That's the one about the first half of their career. And I think the second was called Darker Than Black, or something like that.
Is that not a
Yeah,
trademark?
What?
Darker Than Black? Isn't that that's Rolling Stones?
I probably have that wrong. Let me see. Okay, so the first one is called Birth, School, Metallica, and Death. The second one is called Into the Black. There we go. So, yeah, those are like parts 1 and 2. So I recommend going through them in that order. And not like me. Don't go to Into the Black first. And then you see like them talk about how Saint Anger almost ruined the band. Because it paints a very wrong picture of the band.
My dad loves Metallica.
Well, he probably liked these books.
Maybe. He's probably read them.
Maybe. So I also played It Takes Two. Unfortunately, I didn't get to finish it because I was playing it with my nephew, and
Hey, it takes two.
Me too.
It
and
does
you didn't
take
have
two.
to.
I have played
Yeah.
it too, and we also didn't finish it yet.
What a scam that game is.
but
That's a good game.
I really liked what I played of it.
How far
I
did you
think
get?
I was in the little girl's room, and I think I was it eventually led us into space for some reason.
That's where we are too.
Yeah, that's about where we stopped. But yeah, it seems really cool. It's just that my nephew, sometimes he'll come over and we'll have a chance to play with him. But if he leaves, I want to keep playing it with him and not leave him hanging. So that's why it's we'll see when I finish it, I guess.
I have to assume that, like, I'm at the same point where you guys are. I have to assume it's not that much longer anymore.
Yeah, we're probably.
Although
close to the end.
they did introduce some kind of dumb MacGuffin of like you need to find the pages or something. And I remember there were at least 4 or 5 pages, and we barely got the first one.
It's a pretty lengthy game from what I've seen. Like, it's not as short as A Way Out. A Way Out was pretty brisk. Like, I think me and my dad finished that in like a couple of sittings.
Well,
but I think It Takes Two is way better
it is
than A Way Out.
way better. A Way Out was
Just
fucking trash. I mean, also both these games kind of advertise their co-op elements, and A Way Out had the most gimmicky co-op elements you can come up with.
Yeah, a lot of it was just quick time events and like really half-baked mechanics. It Takes Two's mechanics are a lot more fleshed out, a lot more creative, a lot more interesting and fun to engage with. And I have to really hand it to the team because like they're constantly coming up with like these really unique ideas for mechanics, and then coming up with really fun and inventive ways to interact with those mechanics. Like they fucking knocked it out of the park. Like this game is consistently creative, and it manages to like it doesn't feel like it overwhelming. Like it all feels like all of the mechanics tie into the core mechanics of the game, like the core controls. So it's just brilliant, almost like it's effortless how well everything integrates.
It's really well paced, but because it seems to go on for some time longer, I'm afraid that it will stop being well paced. Like, I don't know how long they can keep up that level of variety.
Of quality. Yeah,
Yeah.
of quality. We'll see, but that is one thing though. Like I will say, I think the game might be too long for its own good.
Oh, actually, I
That's what she
I might
said.
be one level further in than you are.
Because
I think
I don't
after the
remember.
space level is the medieval level.
Yeah, I haven't gotten there yet.
Okay, then we pretty much cleared that.
Yeah.
Um,
But I will say that like it probably is too long for its own good because like there is such a consistent stream of cool ideas and stuff that it does feel like even if it maintains its quality, I think it could get tiring just having so much, you know.
Yeah.
And
also,
in that case, it might feel like, you know how they say something is like greater than the sum of its parts. I think this is the opposite, where it's less than the sum of its parts, where like each individual part is really good, but like trying to put it all together, it's not as good.
well, that's also because the writing is still not very great. It's that fucking book that keeps stalking you is so unbelievably annoying. I just
Yeah, he's not great.
I
do
want to
think
punch that asshole.
I do think the interactions between the married couple that are divorcing is kind of interesting, but I find some of their reactions to be a little weird. Like I don't know, sometimes it just feels like when they react to something, they don't react like real people. It's a little bizarre at times.
Well, but it's like because the subtext is so fucking obvious from the first 5 minutes. It's okay. This
Everything
married
is
couple that is falling apart and they're ready to divorce each other, and now they're going to learn that they can work together again, and that they have something that they care
very
about.
on the nose.
And it's like, okay, I got to that conclusion 5 minutes into the game, and they're still slowly dragging out this realization, and it's like eye rolling. And
well, to be fair, I don't think that realization is for the benefit of the player. I don't think it's obvious what it's gonna be.
Yeah, it's just kind of grating when you know where it's going, and then it takes 15 hours to get there.
Sure, but at the same time, like that makes sense because for those characters, since their marriage is in such dire straits, like it would make sense that it would take a lot for them to realize, you know, what it would take for them to rebuild their own marriage. It's like that's not a conclusion that you can come to quickly. But I do get what you're saying, where it's like, yeah, but at the same time, it is kind of grating to watch.
Yeah. And also the characters,
even if it makes sense,
the characters have the issue of modern games writing, where they just need to keep talking and keep filling that air, and they just need to exclaim everything they do.
Yeah, I'm usually not bothered by that personally, but in this game, there were times where I was just like, okay, I get it, shut up.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. When the game keeps telling you, when the characters in the game keep telling you how awesome something is, and you're just sitting there like, yeah, okay, this sure is a great segment. I don't know. It just rubs me the wrong way sometimes.
I agree with that. I'm never a fan of something that pats itself on the back. I hate that. Like those scenes in Uncharted 4 where the characters go, "Wow, what a view!" Like,
yeah.
It's like, all right, we get it, Naughty Dog. You have great visuals. Stop.
Yeah.
Meanwhile, you have
stop caressing your own balls.
Meanwhile, you have an artistic game like Shadow of the Colossus, where just the camera subtly moves itself to a nice angle of the landscape, and you go like, "Ooh, that's pretty," and no one needs to say a thing.
Imagine if Wander all of a sudden piped in. It's like, wow, this sure is. Despite being called the Forbidden Lands, it sure is beautiful. Imagine
just immediately go, man, look at those fucking textures, bro. That's crisp.
Maybe I was the shadow of the Colossus all along.
Imagine if Wander would all of a sudden, after killing like the 6th Colossus, starts saying things like, "Wow, maybe I've the monster the whole time. I don't feel good about killing all of these creatures that are just minding their own business."
I like the idea of Wander climbing and him going, all right, just a little further, like Nate Draco does.
They made the right decision. But like they knew what they were doing. They were like, keep your fucking mouth shut.
Well, I don't think they had the tech. I don't think they had the processing power to spare to even make him talk.
No, I don't believe that.
You don't think so?
I just
I don't
don't
believe
think
that.
games back then did have that much voice acting, and they didn't have that need to constantly fill the dead air.
Well, I mean, Blu-rays added like how many dozens of extra gigabyte for audio files.
I mean, if the Sly Cooper games can have the characters constantly yapping while you're going through levels as well on the fucking PS2, like,
yeah, that's actually true.
you know, like I granted they're very, 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 very different games, obviously, but I mean they're still on the same platform.
Very similar.
No, there were plenty of PS2 games. Like Grand Theft Auto, like when you're driving around Grand Theft Auto, there was dialogue happening while you were driving. Like if you had like a passenger in your car while you were driving around, they would be yapping to Tommy Vercetti about whatever.
Oh, you know it would be great because the Team Eco games all have their own sort of make-believe language. If Wander had been climbing and he'd just go yum jo kawa, and then the text would be like, "Whoa, this is quite a view."
Just need to get to
Just
the
like the
ledge
same-
over there.
Just like the same inane nothing dialogue, but like, you know, in the fake language.
God, fucking imagine you're playing Shadow of the Colossus and then you're climbing on top of the monster and then, oh, that's its weak spot. I need to stab that. Fuck off.
I've fallen off of my horse and I can't get up.
Oh, it's
Aggro.
it's shaking.
my
I
horse.
need to hold tight.
Yeah.
Ah.
Come on, Wander, do it for Mono.
No, shut up! I hate this. I hate it.
We need to modernize Shadow of the Colossus, guys.
Yeah.
Oh my god!
Blue
Imagine
Point-
if
Blue
Blue
Point really
Point
missed the
added that
mark.
shit in the remake. Oh my god. Anyways, I think it's time for a break. We will
Yes.
return with our epic Final Fantasy and World of Warcraft battle extravaganza
Things will
debate
get heated.
fisticuffs. We'll be back. Welcome back, everyone. Hope you enjoyed your nice break. Everyone had their potty breaks and all that jazz.
Mm-hmm.
So, it is time. It's time to argue about Final Fantasy XIV and World of Warcraft for some reason.
Yes.
Can we-
But we should note though before we start, when we say measured debate, we don't put that unironically, and we don't mean versus in the sense which is better. We're just comparing and contrasting, I guess.
Yeah, we're just talking
Wait,
about
Clickbait.
what the fuck? I thought this is just a get-rich-quick scheme. I don't even have a debate. I have nothing against Final Fantasy. I just want to talk about World of Warcraft.
Okay, Vulcan,
Nope.
talk about World of Warcraft then.
Okay, are you going to interject with your dumb Final Fantasy opinions, or what is going on?
Maybe.
I see. There's been a new patch with a new raid.
Ah, new patch, very good. Did you know that you can play Final Fantasy 14 for free for whatever long?
Did you know that Final Fantasy XIV has a free trial up to level 60 with no limit on game time, and it includes the critically acclaimed, award-winning expansion Heaven's Ward.
I did know that, yes.
More like Heaven's Fart. Right, Boken? Fuck Final Fantasy 14, right, Boken? That's your side.
I'm sure Final Fantasy 14 is fine.
Yeah, it
I
sounds
know
fine.
a lot of people are very bitter about World of Warcraft right now because they
Are
had to
you one
wait
of those
for this
people?
patch. No, because I only got into this game at the start of this year, and I don't have the same kind of fucking baggage that all the World of Warcraft players have, where they just
Can I ask,
they hate each
what-
other and the game and themselves and still keep playing.
I just want to ask, what was it that inspired you to start playing World of Warcraft in the current year?
Well, to be fair, I did play some Burning Crusade and some Wrath of the Lich King, which, I don't know, 2007, 2008, I guess, was when that was out.
Yeah, Bogen, what about like this time we live in with COVID and lockdowns and such? What was
Yeah.
it that inspired you to start playing a game which requires a lot of time?
To be fair, even without COVID, I don't leave my house. So that doesn't matter too much. But
But the
All right then.
it was just...
no. You sure? I say you're like, oh, what made you? Okay, no. But the thing is, World of Warcraft has had a bad reputation for a long time now. That's why I'm a little
No.
perplexed as to like, oh, okay, you started playing it now. 'Cause I assumed that this was something yet that you've always been playing. So to hear that, no, that this is something new for you is interesting.
I know how World of Warcraft plays, and I have played some of it before, but I've never played it seriously. And
Bogan,
a
weren't
friend
you,
shut the fuck
weren't
up, and
you-
I'm answering the question. And a friend of mine got invited by a friend of his to start playing the game. And then this friend of mine kept talking in our Discord about World of Warcraft, and then I was really like, man, I wonder how that game plays now. And then I just started again.
Was that friend of yours, by any chance, named Leroy Jenkins?
Shut up.
This is going to be my contribution to this
see.
debate, because I don't know anything
There's no
about either
debate.
game.
It is a debate.
that-
We're fighting tooth and nail.
Bogan is currently winning.
And I don't know, Shadowlands is out when I started. Like, it's just, you can play that game in so many different ways. And I assume Final Fantasy XIV is the same, where you can kind of decide how much time you want to put into it. And
Sure.
depending on whether you're like a serious raider or you're just a guy who occasionally goes on a raid on the easiest difficulty and otherwise you farm a bunch of bullshit. Like, that just drastically changes A, how much time you spend on the game, and B, how much you actually engage with all the mechanics and the difficulty.
So this was something I wanted to ask. Did you boost or no?
No, I don't boost.
Okay.
I mean, I guess it's not. I guess it's not out of the question, but I really enjoy leveling in World of Warcraft.
Bogan is a purist. He would never boost.
No,
No,
I might.
I ask because the consensus based on at least the hardcore players that I've seen is that leveling is a waste of time and the real game only starts in the end game.
That is true. It is a waste of time, but I still really enjoy it. Because I think, especially in the later, like, you can, at this point, when you level a character, you can choose what expansion you want to level in. Like, all of these old expansions, you can just pick some timeline and then go level in there into the dungeons. And I think
See,
especially the later expansions, like Warlords of Draenor and shit, that's when they started having actual cool quests and good pacing on the quests. So it's not just dumb, come gather 5 sworn feathers.
See, that's kind
Yeah,
of
I had a-
bonkers to me. Because like it's an RPG. Part of the fun of an RPG is to level up. So to say that the leveling up is a waste of time just like doesn't make sense in my brain.
Well, but that's what it is. Like,
Does
the end
the,
game matters the most. It's the same in Path of Exile. Like, you just level your way up to the actual end game where the actual game begins. That's the same in Monster Hunter.
But I feel like the process of leveling up is a part of the fun, or at least it should be.
It's
Well,
it
it
is
is for
fun.
Vulcan.
It is fun because you slowly get to know your class and stuff. But the people who
Yeah.
play it seriously, all the serious activities are in the end game. That's where most of the content is, most of the relevant content anyway. Because you kind of, except for transmogs, which I guess in Final Fantasy is called glamour, you have no reason to visit old dungeons except to get the armor types and to get like rare mounts or do achievements or whatever.
Okay. Real quick, but Acer was trying to say something.
Yeah.
Sorry to cut you off.
This is. I think you may have answered it already, but I'm thinking with expansions, and this is a serious question, not one of my joke goofs. If I were to start playing right now, and I'm not planning to, but I'm just curious. Do the expansions retcon could I still buy the World of Warcraft that released in 2003 or whatever? Like, does that game still exist, or do you need all the current expansions because they feed into the base game on such fundamental levels? Or
well, first of all, you could get World of Warcraft Classic. But also all those old areas are still in the game, and those quests are also still in the game. Your question has a bit of baggage because there was one expansion called Cataclysm, where the point of the expansion was that you're going back to the original areas, and a giant dragon called Deathwing has actually caused serious reshaping of those areas. Like, that was the big thing back there. Like, he caused the cataclysm, and then suddenly, oh my god, like this area that was known as just a bunch of rocks and stony needles. I think it's called stone needles or something. Just a big canyon. Suddenly, this thing is filled with water because of the cataclysm, and so it was this new twist on this old area. And I think you can go back to the original landscapes or to the original levels, and you can level in there. But it is now the cataclysm areas. It's not the original levels.
Interesting.
So I'm wondering, could you play through that canon where you go into those old areas, then go through the cataclysm, and then you can't go back?
No, the cataclysm already exists. But you can level.
Oh, okay.
You can level in the old areas. You can level in any of the old expansions, and then when you reach level 50. You will get a quest to go into the Shadowlands, which is the new expansion, and but then you have to go there. There's no point beyond that to stay in the old levels.
So this Cataclysm is interesting because FF14 had something very similar. So, what do you guys know about version 1.0 of FF14?
I
didn't know there was a version 1.0.
Wasn't it a huge fucking mess? And then they had to redesign like most of the game?
Yes. So when FF14 initially came out, it was made by the same team that made FF11. But FF11 came out before World of Warcraft. So what was acceptable as an MMO when 11 came out was not the same when 14 initially released. And as a result, it was a huge mess. And... It had at the time it had only released on PC, and PCs were struggling to run the game. It was so bad. So yeah, version 1.0, huge catastrophe. Another reason why it ran poorly was because they tried to make everything seamless. So there were no loading screens. But as a result, the game ran like shit. And they had to make weird concessions with the level design in order to maintain the illusion that the whole world was seamless and that giant areas weren't just popping up. So
many tunnels.
Yes. So for example, one of the city states, Ul'dah, has a giant gate that you cannot enter through in 1.0. There was instead a little walkway just to the side. And you had to go through this walkway tunnel in order to actually enter the city-state.
Did they give a reasoning, like in lore?
No.
Like, oh, the gate mechanism is broken. Oh, come on.
Not that I know of, at least.
They could have done that and been like, just take the sewer entrance or something.
It's like an Avatar when they take the sewer into Omashu.
I mean, to be fair,
Yeah.
there may have been a lore reason, but 1.0 is not in an official capacity. It's not technically accessible. I know that there are like
Right.
a few players here and there that found some way to get into 1.0, but I don't know how they did it. There's actually one channel called the Speakers Network that had videos showing unused dungeons, like because originally FF14 was going to go in a very different direction, but when it flopped, they brought in someone new. They brought in Yoshi P, who became the game's director and producer. To just
Your boyfriend.
yes, he came in and fixed everything, and but beforehand, like I said, they had all these dungeons that they were going to implement to the game that ended up going unused because Yoshi P was like, this shit don't work.
Has the answer is probably yes. Has somebody made like a documentary or something detailing like here's how the game was broken and here's how they fixed it?
There's two of them.
All right.
There's two
I
documentaries.
think
So the
NoClip
speakers,
did one, right?
yeah. So NoClip has I think it's a 3-part documentary about FF14 where they actually interview the developers.
Ooh.
Which that one's really good, very professionally made, very, very interesting, worth watching. And then there's the Speakers Network. They have a series called.
And that one's just a piece of shit.
No, it's really good too. It's just that they don't interview the developers, so it's more of just from a purely player perspective. So that is called the fall and rise of Final Fantasy XIV.
See, because I'm not an MMO guy, but the comeback story of Final Fantasy XIV I find to be so interesting that I kind of wanna look into that.
I would recommend at the very least watching the NoClip documentary. It's almost it's like inspiring to watch, to see how Yoshi P came in and just turned everything around. Like there's like a kind of an infamous picture of him while he was making remaking 1.0 of him like on the floor with like a can of Red Bull.
Life goals.
Yeah. So what happened in the game is, so they basically killed 1.0 with something called the Calamity. And they were basically like, okay, just everything is just destroyed. And it took them, I think, like 5 years to like rebuild things. And that's where
Jesus.
And that's where A Realm Reborn starts. No, I mean 5 years in the game's lore.
Oh, okay.
So in the lore, it's like it took them 5 years to get stable again. And that's where the game starts.
That gives them an excuse for things to be different enough.
Yes.
Yeah.
Because I've seen, oh my God, I have seen what those original areas look like. They were trash. There was oh my God, the Black Shroud in version 1.0 looked like, like waffles, how they have like little squares.
Yeah.
That's what the map looked like, except times 30.
Oh my God. I'm getting like Vivek PTSD from Morrowind, the worst designed area in the game, where it's just like 6 or 8 pyramids, and they all operate the exact same, and they have walkways between them, and it's so ugly.
Yeah, I remember watching footage of some of these old areas and just like reeling, just going like, oh, and you couldn't even jump. So like there was tons of like invisible walls everywhere that you if there was like a little ledge, you couldn't go over it. Like the game just wouldn't let you.
Can you jump in the new version?
Yes, you can jump, and you also have flying mounts.
Ooh.
So you can fly around on your dragon.
It is interesting to me, a bit out of the MMO talk. It's very interesting how however good the movement system is in a game, and like the original for Final Fantasy XIV maybe wasn't that great, but like a pleasant, interestingly designed area can be like, you can, if the area is good, you can forgive bad movement. If the area is bad, good movement won't even save it.
Interesting.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think I see what you're saying. So I'm going to pass the ball back to Boken. So why don't you talk about World of Warcraft?
Okay.
Hey, maybe I'm interested in the Shadowlands, because that opens up at level 50, you said.
Yeah.
Is that the new expansion?
Yeah. And they also
What's that about?
redid the whole leveling process, because in the previous expansion the maximum level was 120 or 130, because they kept adding 10 levels every expansion, right? Like they started in vanilla with 60, and then 70, and then 80, and I think Cataclysm was only 85, but then they kept going more and more. And that, of course, led to insane number inflation, where suddenly everyone was doing like 1 million DPS and had a 2 million health and all that bullshit. And then they just redid the whole leveling process so that all the expansions lead to level 50, and then 50 to 60 is Shadowlands, and then the Shadowlands endgame. And there was one point in the game when my friend was playing it. He showed me he had the most powerful weapons in the game, and it was like green and black twin blades you got from killing a giant black dragon from memory. That has to be Burning Crusade, but you don't. The twin blades.
Twin blade, or twin blades, or two swords that are like.
Do you have any Warcraft experience? Even the Warcraft 3?
No.
There's the Demon Hunter, original Demon Hunter unit in Warcraft 3, which that hero used 2 Warglaves, and that was in the original story Illidan Stormrage, who was then like one of the main characters, and who was then a raid boss in Burning Crusade, which is the second expansion. And I remember he dropped a mythical pair of daggers that looked like the Warglaves, which was very special back then, because no other weapon looked like that. But also,
I've just Googled it. It's the Warglaive of Asimov.
Yeah, that's in Illidan. That's Burning Crusade. But that's not you get them from Illidan, not from a giant dragon, I think.
Oh, I may have been misremembering.
But the thing is, they eventually, in Legion, they introduced the character class Demon Hunter. And they actually use real Warglaves now. So there's now a Warglaves weapon class in the game.
Oh. See, I'm wondering, those used to be... I was told by my friend that they were the most powerful weapon in the game at that point.
Mm-hmm. Yeah,
okay.
Illidan was the end boss of that patch, basically.
Okay, is that still true?
No, those are completely outdated.
Yeah, I thought so.
Yeah. They're just for transmog now. And
you know what I love? And this is probably the final sort of detour I'd like to take here. In these evolving games, and I throw Yu-Gi-Oh! In for me. I love it when a piece of old content accidentally is viable. So like a card designed 10 years ago just magically happens to have a very unique, interesting interaction on the field, which makes it competitive however many years onwards.
Yeah, I get that.
Is there anything like that in these MMOs?
There's no chance that can happen in an MMO, because everything you can get in older expansions is super out-leveled.
Yeah.
But, I mean, they keep bringing the characters back. Illidan has been a boss, a raid boss. You killed him in Burning Crusade, and then he came back in Legion, and then he was an ally.
Oh. Nice.
Yeah. So anyway, like the thing I actually want to talk about is that there has been a new patch, and World of Warcraft has kind of an interesting patch cycle, because with every big new patch, like this is 9.1, there comes a new raid tier. So now we have a new raid with 10 bosses. And the end boss is Sylvanas Windrunner, who is a very popular and very well-known character from Warcraft 3.
Even I know about that character.
Yeah. And she's a big meme because she's terribly written and people think she's hot. And that's why she's still around.
I think I saw you tweeting about her.
Yeah, there has been... she has been working for the big baddie in Shadowlands. And because she is now the end boss of this current raid tier, there was a big cinematic where basically her story is a little bit resolved and it was just terrible. Like, it was really awful. I probably shouldn't get into details, but yeah, her character writing makes no fucking sense. And I don't think they can salvage that whatsoever in what's to come after this patch. But what's interesting is that I've never really done raiding. I've done a little bit of raiding in Wrath of the Lich King, but I'm pretty sure that was just normal mode and we barely got anything done with the guild I was in. So that's like nothing. And what's really interesting is when you... this is the first time I'm actually raiding with a serious guild. And being in the thick of things from the beginning, it's called progress raiding, basically, where you don't have the raid on farm yet. All these bosses are completely new. Your gear is bad because the patch just started. And now you're slowly chipping away at these giant encounters. And just you get little bit closer to killing them for the first time with every pull. And that sort of progress rating is very different from actually having beaten them all and then being geared enough and experienced enough as a group to just kill everything on the first try and then farming the bosses. And so this is my first time where I'm actually getting to go through the process of having 15 other people around me, and we are just slowly learning how these bosses work. And it's really cool. I don't know how much that translates to Final Fantasy, because I know they have a similar rating system. So I assume it's similar that way too. But it's it's a really cool experience that I don't think you can get anywhere else.
So there's two different types of raids generally in FF14. There's normal raids, which are smaller, kind of bite-sized raids. And then there's alliance raids where it's 3 alliances working together in order to either go through a dungeon type area with multiple bosses. Yeah, that's basically how it works. It's like one really big dungeon.
Yeah.
With a few trash mobs and then multiple bosses punctuated throughout it. While the normal raids, it can either be a smaller dungeon with some trash mobs and then a boss at the end, or it's just the boss. And it comes down to learning how those bosses fight, learning their mechanics and learning not just to dodge certain AoEs, but also understanding certain gimmicks. So for example, there's one boss that while you're fighting it, eventually it creates a shield, and then you have to stop attacking the boss and start attacking the shield. But you can't just attack the shield from any direction. You literally have to be in front of it in order for the damage to actually go through. There's certain attacks that you have to know how they work in order to dodge them properly. So this boss will send out an AoE that zombifies you. You actually have to touch that AoE because the next attack is going to be Megadeath. And if you aren't zombified, Megadeath just kills you. And then otherwise, if you are zombified, then the effect goes away. So all of the bosses have their own unique gimmicks and mechanics that you have to learn. But there are also universal mechanics that overlap between bosses. So there's one universal mechanic where there's a purple eye. You have to physically turn your character model away when that appears. Otherwise, your character will get petrified every time. So no matter what boss it is, if you see that purple eye opening up, you have to turn your character model away in order to not be petrified.
Yeah. It's it's a lot of it's actually interesting from also a design perspective how those attacks usually function like visually, because World of Warcraft has similar stuff where one of them is like a swirly on the ground. You usually, when you see that swirly animation, regardless of what boss it is, move away. But then there's also another swirly on the ground that looks differently, but when you see that, it's usually a soak, so everyone needs to stand in that. And it's a lot of universal raid mechanics, just rearranged differently, and then a lot of bosses have some kind of special gimmick or something that makes the fight unique.
Yeah, so there's similar stuff in F14. So there's like the basic like AoE markers on the floor. Just make sure you're not in the AoE marker. But something to keep in mind is the animation is not reflective of. So when you see the AoE marker, there's like, as long as you're not in the marker, you won't get hit even if you walk into the animation. So you'll see the marker first, and then you'll see like a sword cleave, or you'll see like the flames or whatever. As long as you weren't in the AoE marker, you can walk back into the animation and it won't affect you.
Okay.
If that makes sense.
Yeah.
And there's also other things like, you'll see like arrows pointing towards one character, like these big, a circle and these big arrows. That means like everyone has to converge around that character because the boss is about to do a big attack, and people are going to take less damage when they converge together.
Well, that's basically a soak. That's exactly what that is.
Okay.
Yeah, that's like
Bogan is dropping some hot MMO terminology down your throat,
it's
Daniel.
possible that it's called differently in F14. But yeah, it's the idea of this attack is coming, you can't avoid it, and the damage can be distributed depending on how many people get hit.
Yeah. But sometimes the game will kind of flip the script a bit on what you expect on AoEs. So like at one point you fight Kefka from FF6, and kind of playing into Kefka's character as like a trickster, he has an AoE that has a bunch of question marks on it. And what you actually have to do in that instance is you actually have to stand inside of his AoE because everything else is going to take damage.
Interesting. Hey, can I ask you, Daniel?
Yes.
Final Fantasy. You said Kefka is in it.
Yes.
How is this set in the same universe as Final Fantasy games? Some are, or like, what is going on here with the story?
So the main story. So what I described is side content. It's not tied to the main story.
Okay, so is it canon though, or is it like just a bit of fun?
It's a bit of fun.
Okay.
Yeah, like it's. I think with Kefka specifically, that was a simulation. It wasn't like the actual Kefka.
So there's no chance of Sephiroth showing up in like the main story.
In the main story, absolutely not.
I'm gonna kill the planet.
No,
That's my Sephiroth.
The best you can hope for is he might appear in a raid as like a fun wink and a nod, and that's it. But he would never appear in the actual story because the main story takes itself pretty seriously.
It's in its own universe, right? It's not a continuation of any other one.
No, it's not a continuation of anything else. It's its own thing.
Interesting.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Last thing I want to talk about is the race to world first, which is going on right now. And it happens every time a new big patch comes out with a new raid, where all the big guilds with the big sponsors race to actually get the world first mythic kill, like the basically the world first mythic Sylvanas kill this time. Last year it was
interesting.
like mythic. There are nowadays there are 4 different difficulties for every raid, and it's like one for the absolute plebs where mechanics do nothing, and then there's normal, and then heroic, and then comes mythic, and mythic is like for the top 1% raiders because it's just too difficult for everybody else. And they're basically trying to beat the last boss of the mythic raid as fast as possible. And server reset, like the release was in America on last Tuesday. In Europe it was Wednesday. And they've been like playing nonstop, those guilds. And right now they're at Sylvanas and they're pulling and they're trying to get it done this week before Wednesday, where the whole thing will reset. Then they have to fight through the dungeon again.
Wait, how long does it take to finish a dungeon?
Depends on how good you are.
Yeah, but you said they've been at it for some time.
Yeah,
now.
because
are you spending?
They've been playing 16 hours a day since Tuesday.
It takes over 16 hours for a single dungeon.
No, it takes 16 hours for an undergeared guild. Like with the best gear you could get before the dungeon was released, and with on the hardest difficulty. That's what makes it difficult. Like you come back in 4 months when everyone and their grandmother has beaten the dungeon and has gotten a lot of loot from it, and then it's just a farm raid where you know all the bosses and shit. Then it's gonna take a couple hours at most to beat the whole thing.
Okay.
All right. But this is the fun of the event. It's the hardest difficulty. People don't know a lot about the mechanics because in Mythic the most of the fights are completely different and way harder. And these guilds are undergeared in the sense that they don't have a lot of gear from the current tier because they didn't have the time to farm it. They wanted to do right now, so they have bad gear. They have the best gear from the last patch, basically. And so they need to get, like, they need to use a lot of tricks. They need to use the best compositions. They need to find the classes that do the most damage right now. And there's also been some absolute degeneracy, but it's pretty normal, where you go back to the heroic version and like you get 30 people to just kill the dungeon once, because you can only kill every dungeon every raid once per week, and then you need to wait for the reset. And so they stacked a bunch of plate-wearing classes so that all the plate is going to drop at once when they kill a boss, and they have 30 people around, and then they just fuel all the loot into their most important players, so that they can send the 20 most important players into the mythic dungeon, and that they have good gear to actually take on the boss. And like all this shit is going on. It's a really cool race. There are multiple channels with like multiple casters that are just staying in wherever they are in Texas or wherever they have their headquarters, and they're just casting this whole thing 16 hours a day on Twitch. And I think it has actually right now it has the most viewers on Twitch, I want to say. Like, it has beaten all the other games. So, and they're also at the last boss, and the question is, will they get it before Tuesday or not? I recommend to you guys just tuning in and watching Sylvanas go down, because when this comes out, it's going to be horribly outdated.
I see.
You don't know. We might release this in a few minutes.
I'm sure.
So, I saw a YouTube video where this guy, he used to be really into mythic raids in WoW, and he quit them in favor of FF14's raids.
Talking about Asmongold?
No. Asmongold hasn't quit WoW.
Okay.
No, I'm talking about someone else.
Do
Do
you know the name?
Yeah, I'm trying to look it up. Okay, his name is Lynx Camelli. And the video is called Why I Quit Mythic Raiding in WoW to Raid in FF14.
Okay.
It's like a 16-minute long video. And what I find interesting about this video is when a lot of the time when you hear people discuss FF14, a lot of the fans talk about the story. They'll talk about how great the story is. And while I also enjoy the story, what's interesting about this guy is he's a purely gameplay driven person. He skips the story. He doesn't care. And that's not him saying that the story is bad. He's just there for the rating. That's what he's there for. And he talks about in the video that he doesn't wear it as a badge of honor, but he just really enjoys the rating in FF14. And he explains like the rush of adrenaline that he gets from doing ultimate raids in FF14. So the difficulties in FF14 are basically you have normal, you have hard, you have extreme, you have savage, and then you have ultimate. Ultimate being just like crazy people. You're like in the 1% of players that's actually completed anything that's an ultimate. The fact that this guy has done all the ultimate raids is kind of insane. Like, most players are not good enough to even do Savage, let alone Ultimate.
Okay.
So, no, I just thought it was...
Are you getting to some kind of point? Or?
Well, I mean, if he quit WoW for Final Fantasy XIV, that means Final Fantasy XIV won the debate, right?
No, not necessarily. I just think it's a video worth checking out.
The thing is, I haven't tried mythic raiding yet. The guild I'm in right now is a heroic guild.
I just bring him up because I think he represents like a very specific perspective on the game that you don't really see. Because again, whenever you ask anyone like, oh, why do you like FF14? They're like, oh, I love the story in Heaven's Ward. I love the story in Shadowbringers. Because a lot of people treat FF14 less like an MMO and they treat it like another Final Fantasy game that happens to have online components. I bring up his video because I think it offers a very important perspective on the game that like, okay, look, yes, the story is good, but there is in fact a game here.
See,
and then it's actually very in depth and it can be very rewarding mechanically.
That's the impression I got, is that most Final Fantasy XIV seems to have way more casual players than World of Warcraft, which is wild to say because World of Warcraft also is a super casual game, or you can play it as a super casual game. And as someone who comes from like fighting games and Valorant, where basically they're like, fuck casual players, no one cares. Like you compete to be the best. It was wild to see how bad and casual some of the people in World of Warcraft are, but you usually don't need to really like play with them because they just play different content. It seems to me like Final Fantasy is just is like a hangout RPG for a lot of people, and the raiding community doesn't seem to be that big. Whereas in World of Warcraft, I only watch mythic raiders on YouTube and on Twitch. Like nothing. The rest of the shit is just no one cares, or like you don't really have to care. The end game is where it's at, and everyone, all the channels I watch are like how to min-max your characters, what are the new mechanics that are coming in, what are they going to do, like how do you need to spec this and that. All the really nitty-gritty mechanic stuff is what most of the dedicated World of Warcraft players talk about.
Well, I can tell you that even on like the normal difficulty, like the Eve Elise raids, for example, in FF14 are fucking hard. So I feel like if you're someone that you don't really care about the story and all you care about the mechanics, there is still a lot to get out of Final Fantasy XIV. And I think it's one of those games that it can be as casual or as hardcore as you want it to be. So like you can even go back to some older content and you can set up certain variables to make it more difficult for yourself. You could set up a you can do a minimum item level so that you can do content at like, you can beat bosses at like the weakest that is allowed for you. And again, like I said, there's also like just multiple tiers of difficulties for people who really like, if you're that fucking crazy, you can make this game like ball bustingly difficult.
Yeah.
But at the same time, I would say like, if all you care about is you just want to get through the main story, that's all you care about, most of that content is pretty manageable. It's mostly the raids where things get really difficult. And that's not to say that the main story content is a fucking cakewalk all the time, right? Like if you're not picking up the slack, then you can easily die. You know, like if you're not paying attention and you're just like, you know, lackadaisically just like playing through the dungeons and not paying attention to the boss gimmicks, very easily you can die. So yeah, Final Fantasy 14, I would say it to a certain extent, yeah, it can be very casual, but it's based on how you want to play it for the most part.
Have you watched this video that you talked about?
Yes.
Does
Why
the
would
guy make the argument that mythic rating, like it requires too much time and too much grinding?
I did see the video. I don't remember him saying that it was too grindy. I think for him, he just preferred how mechanically FF14 worked compared to WoW.
Okay.
Like he found the raids in FF14 to be more mechanically engaging for him.
Because that seems to be like World of Warcraft players hate World of Warcraft. But what seems to still be there is the idea that the raids are generally cool and the boss designs are cool. Like they've never really let themselves down that hard on the raids themselves. It's usually all the systems around that have to, like the thing you need to do to gear up and prepare for the raids. That's what people are usually annoyed about.
Okay. I mean, I don't remember that specific. It's been, I want to say it's been like a week or so since I've seen the video, so I don't remember him bringing that up specifically.
Okay, it's just was just a guess. I don't know. Maybe there are some differences in Final Fantasy that he just prefers. And maybe didn't you say that Final Fantasy is going to bring out its last expansion soon?
Well, no, we don't know if it's going to be the last expansion per se. It is going to bring the current storyline to a conclusion.
That's what I mean. Like that sounds like after that there's going to be some kind of reset where it might be opportunistic to jump in then.
We don't know exactly what they have planned. But they did say that the story and experiences that the players have had up to this point is not going to be negated, and it's not going to be erased, and it's not going to be made irrelevant. It's still all going to be canon, and it's still all going to be relevant, but that the current storyline will conclude, and that it looks like they're going to do a different storyline later down the road.
Well,
what if they did though? What if they were like, we've told the story, so the server's going to be up with the new content for like a month, and then we're shutting the whole thing down?
That would suck.
Why
I
would
would not enjoy that.
This is a money machine.
Yeah, it doesn't really make much sense for them to do that, especially now that Final Fantasy 14 is more popular than it's ever been. They literally ran out of digital copies to sell of the new expansion.
What? Wait, how? Digital copies?
Yeah, the digital copies, they ran out. I didn't even know that was possible.
How do you do that?
I don't know, but it happened. And the servers are packed. Like, more people are playing the game at once than ever.
They probably had like we have the capacity for 1 million players, so we can't sell more than 1 million copies of the game.
No.
And then
Asa, come on.
No, well, I'm just saying.
You think they'll let like server population deficits stop themselves from selling games? You're just gonna get put in a queue.
No, I'm saying we can't manage more than 1 million players, so we're only going to create 1 million codes of the game to sell. And then they just kept selling, but they didn't have room to put them in, so they stopped selling them or something. While they fixed the server capacity. I don't know. I'm just trying to work out what it means to run out of
to be something that Square Enix would do. Like
Square Enix is very pro-consumer.
Oh, yeah.
How dare you?
I mean, Square Enix may not be pro-consumer, but the director certainly is.
I have to assume that, like, my guess would have also been there's some kind of identifier that lets you know or lets the system know that you have bought a digital copy of the game, and they just ran out of that was in some kind of limited capacity. But
yeah, maybe. I honestly don't know.
From my experience, publishers don't give a fuck if there are more people buying the game than the servers can hold. It's gonna be a rocky start. They're gonna get some new servers, and then eventually it will even out. But they won't stop themselves from fucking playing games, from selling games.
Yeah, I mean, again, I'm not totally sure how this happened. It's kind of nuts, but that's the current situation. They ran out of. I'm glad I got my pre-order copy before this happened, because yikes.
I'm wondering, do you guys have anything more to talk about?
No, I'm pretty much through all I wanted to say. I'm looking forward to beating the whole raid. It's
Daniel?
Again, people have World of Warcraft people have a lot of baggage with their game, and me as someone who just came in isn't really bothered by everything all that much, so I'm just really enjoying the game. I think it's a cool game. And it's pretty unique.
Right.
Like MMOs are just a pretty special genre overall.
Hey, how big is World of Warcraft to download? 200 gigabytes?
No clue. I really have no idea.
All right. Daniel, do you have anything more to say?
Sure. Just a little bit. So I don't remember exactly where I was in FF14 the last time we talked about it. I want to say I was maybe either halfway or towards the end of the first expansion. But I'm currently halfway through Shadowbringers, which is the current expansion up until Endwalker comes out in November. And I gotta say that the game is pretty fantastic. I like it a lot. And I know it's a meme to bring up the free trial. We even brought it up earlier. But, like, honestly, if you're one of those people that are really iffy about MMOs, if you're a Final Fantasy fan, I'd say to treat it less like an MMO and treat it more like a Final Fantasy game that happens to have online connectivity. And I think you might enjoy it more that way. But yeah, I'd also say, like, a lot the praise that the story gets is mostly deserved. I think the story in the base game is pretty standard. Not anything to write home about. Got some good moments, but the story in Heavensward is genuinely great. Like really fucking good. Then the story in Stormblood, I think, isn't as strong. I found that the story in Heavensward was a lot deeper. It was a lot more thematically rich. While Stormblood, the scope of it didn't feel quite as epic. Like with Heavensward, it felt like you were literally walking into centuries worth of history. While Stormblood is more about, like, a revolution and fighting against the Empire, which isn't, like, inherently bad or anything, but it did feel like a step down. It was also it also felt like two stories in one, where you had the stuff with Alamigo, and then you had the stuff with Kugane and Lord Heian, and him trying to reclaim Doma and shit like that, which is all like, it's cool, but again, it's not like it didn't have the gravitas of the previous expansion, so it's had kind of a step down. But then, now that I'm in Shadowbringers, the story has gotten significantly more interesting. And I would say, like, if you're like me and you were going through Stormblood and you're like, oh, the story is kind of slid down in quality a bit, I would say to stick with it, because it gets so much better when you hit Shadowbringers. I am like really fully engaged with the story right now. It is really fascinating stuff. There is a part that genuinely felt like it was something out of a Yoko Taro game. Took me completely by surprise. There was a scene that was genuinely disturbing to watch, and that's not something I expected at all. Like, it was really fucked up, and it didn't feel like it came out of nowhere, because it had already set up that something like this could happen. But the fact that you actually saw it before your very eyes was like really shocking. So, I still need to obviously complete Shadowbringers, but if it keeps up this momentum, then yeah, I definitely see why people praise it as like the best expansion thus far. It's pretty fantastic. And yeah, that's all I have to say so far. And outside of the story, it's really fun. I like leveling up all my different classes. I've been leveling up my Dragoon, my Dark Knight, my Red Mage, my White Mage, my Gunbreaker, the Paladin. I'm having a lot of fun leveling up all the different classes. And like I said before, I think leveling up is part of the fun. So this idea of like just skipping to the end game in World of Warcraft, I'm sure that's enjoyable in its own right, but for me, I love the process of leveling up all my classes. So I find that to be like a really key part of the experience. And yeah, it's good shit. I recommend it.
Has either one of you ever made a video about these games?
I will.
That was my second question. Will you?
Yeah, so I have a script already done. I already did the voice read. I just need to edit it together. And it's basically, the video is called A Messy Relationship with MMOs.
I was thinking about... No, sorry.
Oh, yeah, no, real quick. I was just going to say, the video is about how I started with RuneScape, and then I had a really bad experience, and then I swore off MMOs for a really long time until FF14 came along and, changed things for me.
I've never heard of a person who started out with RuneScape not say, I had a bad experience with it. Like, something always happens, your account gets hacked, you get killed in Wildly or some shit. It's always something happens and you're like, fuck this genre of games. But Bogan, you were saying?
Yeah.
Yeah, I had a video idea, although I'm not even sure what I would say, but like about World of Warcraft as a storytelling medium. What works and what doesn't work. Because
should I make an MMO RPG video too? I can do Dragon Fable.
I mean, go for it. Why not? Anyways, I think that brings things to a conclusion. Clearly,
yes.
World of Warcraft is a pile, and you should play FF14 instead. I win.
I was going to say,
wrecked,
clearly
Bogan.
we all know who won, so that the clickbaiters don't get a satisfying conclusion.
No, you can't pussyfoot. You need to stand firm. The people only think in binary. They don't like subtlety. They don't like anything that's in a gradient.
That's true. Bogan, do you think you won?
Yeah, sure.
There,
right.
See? We both won and we both lost.
As the man in the center, I guess I get to declare a winner. But
the truth is somewhere
I feel
in the
like I'm
middle.
not I feel like I'm still too uninformed.
Well, you know what? I need to ask you this, Boken. Does WoW have a free trial?
It's made by Activision
think
Blizzard,
it
Daniel.
has.
What do you think?
I think if I think a friend can recommend you, and then you get a free trial or some shit like that.
Well, well, Acer, there you go. There's 2
Interesting.
MMOs with free trials. You can come to your own conclusion.
Interesting. That's been this episode.
Goodbye, everyone.
Bye.
Bye.